Hello, friends. Welcome back to our 21 days meditation program. Hope you are all having fun day today. And today we are going to have new teacher. Name is Shiva Pawar. Shiva, are you ready? You need some time?
No, I'm trying to just get my camera ready.
Okay, I think I hear from two places. So maybe if you can, yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Uh, there you go. I'm ready.
Okay, so I will mute all first, and then you have to unmute yourself. Okay. So, friends, welcome back and another wonderful session. Today we have a new teacher. Last time, Vindhya taught us some beautiful stuff about meditation, how it is going to help our health in a very scientific manner. And today we have Shiva Pawar to share some more wisdom with us. Welcome, Shiva. Welcome here. And then the stage is yours. Please introduce yourself and then you can begin the session.
Thank you. So I guess I'll begin with a quick introduction. Hi, guys. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shiva Pawar. I'm Sheetal's son, if you guys don't know. And as of right now, I am an entrepreneur. Co-founded The Urban Indian, which is a fashion-based clothing brand, and we've been scaling and growing globally. And it's been a really fun time. Before that, I worked at a cybersecurity consulting company. And then before that, I was a college student, graduated from the University of Georgia. So that's like my quick resume. But beyond that, as a kid, I've always really liked science. I've always liked learning about things, about how things work, about, also a little bit of history and just the history of science and that kind of stuff, right? And that led me down a path of kind of researching and getting into a lot of deep fields of science and trying to understand what the new research is coming out and what kind of things that they're trying to teach us. And there's been really cool recent studies that show information about consciousness and reality and how it all plays together. So today, that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about consciousness and its effect on reality. And the beginning is essentially that we believe that reality has a strong effect on us, but in reality, it's that we have a much stronger effect on reality than what we believe. And to kind of demonstrate that in a scientific way, I want to go over this experiment called the double slit experiment. I don't know if a lot of you guys know about it, but it is one of the most confounding experiments. It was done in the 1970s, and this experiment was recreated across the globe by scientists. It's extremely well known. This was something that was in my chemistry textbook in high school. So it's not some like crazy science. It's an actual experiment that happened that was done and recurred thousands and thousands of times across scientists around the globe. And the reason it was done thousands of times is because scientists could not believe the results of the findings. So I'm going to play a quick video that describes these findings in a cool way. It's a little technical. So after the video, I'm going to give like a little brief explanation, but the video is by this guy named Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's one of my favorite scientists. He's super cool and has a really good way of talking. So I'm going to show that by sharing my screen. And then let's go entire screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool.
Yes, now.
All right, so I'm just gonna play this video.
I think you need to share the sound as well when you share the screen.
How do I do that? You're muted, Mom, I think. Is there no way to share without? I think I shared audio too. Can you hear this?
Set out to devise ways of...
Can you guys hear that? Mom, you're muted.
We can hear.
Okay, cool.
Scientists, in their never-ending fascination with light, set out to devise ways of isolating smaller and smaller units of it. It proved to be the passageway through the looking glass. It was the crossing of a threshold into a wonderland where the known rules of physics do not apply. For the first time, they were able to isolate the tiniest unit of light, a single photon, and to perform Young's double-slit experiment on a whole new level, tracing its precise path either through the right slit or the left slit. We'll pull over to the side of the road for the best possible view of which slit, the right or the left, the photon passes through to get to the far wall. Left slit, right slit, another right slit, left slit. If we watch them all day long, the pattern would be random. About half would go through either slit. Wait a second. Where are the waves? Where's Young's interference pattern? This is where the weird begins. I cannot explain to you what you're about to see. That's because no one on Earth understands it yet. If you can't live with that, then you're not going to be happy with what lies up ahead. On the smallest possible scale that we've ever discovered, the quantum universe, the mere act of observation changes reality. Okay, photons, keep on coming. This time, we promise not to look. You're not going to believe this, but we can change the pattern on the far wall simply by not watching which slit the photons pass through. I know it sounds crazy, but in every trial ever conducted, the outcome depends on whether or not the experiment was observed. So the reason we didn't get the interference pattern earlier wasn't because we chopped up the light into single photons. It was because we were observing which slit the photons passed through. But how can a photon know if someone is watching?
So yeah, basically that is the double slit experiment. I don't know if that went over your guys' heads, but I'm gonna do a little drawing of what this experiment is and what it kind of means. So I'm gonna try sharing my screen here. Cool. I hope you guys can see this. Let me go to Procreate. There you go. Oh, no, not Procreate. Good notes. Where's that? Yeah, there you go. Cool. So the double slit experiment, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. Essentially, what we do is when we are looking at the experiment and we are paying attention to the way light travels, it is different than when we are not paying attention. And that is the only thing that they have changed. Scientists have tried changing the temperature, the altitude, the location, the time of day, every other possible factor. But the only factor that actually changes how the experiment happens is our observation, our ability to put our eyes into this world, right? So what is the differences between when we observe and we don't observe, right? So Einstein said that light is both a particle and a wave. And light is the most basic building block of essentially the universe, right? It's how everything passes, and it's the absolute limit of what the universe can go. It's the fastest thing, right? So how light acts when we are observing is, as you can see, when there's two slits and you send electrons through them, if you have a wall, all of them will show up right here and right here. This is when we are watching, right? When we are viewing, there's only two possible realities, right? When the electron goes in, it comes out, right? The rest of this is a board. All the electrons that hit here will not pass through, right? Only through the slits they'll pass through. When we are not looking, something very interesting happens, right? When we are not observing and when we are not looking, this electron that passes through acts like a wave. It doesn't act like a particle that goes straight. It actually acts like a complete wave, which creates an interference pattern, right? These marks where they all collide is the realities. And you'll see that there's actually 5 options now when it's not being observed, right? So what this experiment tells us is that the universe is constantly collapsing in on it of itself. It's always a wave function. It's a wave. It's a assortment of options. It's infinite. And then when we observe it, when we pay attention to it, when we give intention and observe something, it becomes real. It collapses into reality and then becomes a particle. So it goes from wave into particle the moment we observe it. Now, what does that really mean? And how can we kind of use it? And what can we kind of do to see what that really means, right? Now, what I'm going to talk about next is exactly that, right? So quantum computing is a new thing that happens, right? And what that is it's the difference between bits, which is ones and zeros, and probabilities, right? So essentially, there are infinite, endless realities, right? And what we put our intention towards and what we put our thoughts towards is what the universe will follow. That is actually what the cutting edge of science is saying, right? And it's almost crazy because our internal beliefs do really shape the way we see the world, right? Think about it. Hundreds of years ago, when we didn't know how the universe existed, we thought rains were from the gods. We thought tsunamis were from the gods. We looked to the skies for answers, right? We looked to the stars for answers because we didn't know what it was, right? We didn't have enough observation. But as we observe and as we learn and as we grow and as our beliefs change, the way we see the world changes too. And that's super powerful as well, right? So if the world is nothing but just endless options, why not give your attention and your focus towards what you want, right? Towards what kind of reality you want to create. Because science literally says that our attention is so important to the creation of the universe. That's why the Bhagavad Gita says you are the universe. That's why hundreds of thousands of ancient texts says the answers are within you, right? For hundreds of years, humans keep looking, right, left and right. What is the answer to this universe, right? Who really am I? Who are we? And we always look outside for the answers, right? We look during the day, during the night. We look at how we are in the mirror. We look at who we are, right? How our friends see us, how we see our friends. But we never, ever look inside and realize that it actually is all within us, right? Everything that we're trying to do, everything that we're trying to get from the external is completely within you, right? And it's mind-blowing when you really think about it, because that's really what's happening. We are actually creating a completely new reality every single time that we are paying attention to something. The next topic I kind of want to go into is a little bit about a little techie. It's interesting to me because it shows how humans are wired to still always look for external validation and still always trying to find the external way of doing things rather than the internal way of doing things, right? So the classic computer has, oh, I spelled that wrong. Has bits, right? Bits are ones and zeros. This essentially means there's only 2 options, right? It's only a yes or a no in computer terms, right? That is the way conventional computers have worked this whole time. Ever since these new findings about scientific advancements in quantum space have arrived, there's been so many new advancements that we have started with quantum computers, right? And I know you guys hear the word quantum so many times, quantum theory, quantum power, quantum field. I'm going to explain what it actually is, right? I'm going to explain how we are actually using it and why it could be a little wrong, right? So the way a quantum computer works is that instead of 1 and 0, instead of the 2 realities, it works by working in the field of waves, right? So it can be 1 or it can be 0. It's a probability between 1 and 0. It exists between. And when we observe it, when we give the quantum computer the trigger, that's when it chooses. Oh, it becomes there. Oh, it becomes there. Oh, it becomes there. So what we are now doing as humans is piling these qubits together, right? And we are able to do calculations that are so big, that are so large, that regular computers could never do it, because we are now working in the field of infinite possibilities. That is essentially what we need to tap into. We need to tap into understanding how we can go from processing in yes and no, hot and cold, good and bad, into understanding everything is a spectrum. Everything is kind of, there's no real definition to anything, right? Heat is just the absence of cold. Cold is just the absence of heat, right? It's all just one. So what this computer does is it takes all these realities, right? And then the scientists give it an input, and then it gives you an output. They don't know what happens inside. It is a complete black box. In a computer, you know what happens, right? You know, this happens first, then that happens, then this happens, right? You have a process list. In quantum, there is none, right? This is untapped territory in science. This is essentially the edge of what we know, right? Now, why is this interesting, right? Why is the fact that these waves collapsing is important, right? Well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit, right? The actual importance of quantum computing will be shown right now. I'm going to show you this Google thing. I don't know if you guys have heard Google Willow, right? But it is a quantum computer that is able to do calculations, like I just said, that regular computers would never be able to do. And if you look up how scientists say that it is able to do these, it says that scientists suggest it does not provide full empirical evidence, right? Because you can't get the full evidence, but they suggest that the computer is actually doing calculations in multi-universes, right? It is doing it in parallel universes, right? It's doing it so fast that it's able to actually tap into all the realities, search for the answer in all these different realities, and then it comes to you with the answer. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that one of the craziest things you could think of? It's something where scientists have created a black box where you toss it something and it literally calculates it in different realities, searches for the reality where the answer is there, and brings it to you. So how can we tap into that pressure? How can we get that power? How can we act on the quantum scale and not on the scale that we are taught to believe in, right? And now we get into a little bit of theory, right? Now we leave science a little bit, right? So you guys can take a deep breath, you know. I want to pause for a second. So we're going to go into some more emotion and how we can use these things in our life. But before I go on to that, does anybody have any questions about any of this? I can kind of outline anything if something's confusing. Anyone? No one?
Friends, if you have any questions, let me unmute you all so that you can. Yes, now you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, maybe we will go with the real life examples. Maybe they can resonate more better. Yes. Shiva, you are mute.
Oh yeah, let's go into some real world examples. So I know that was a lot, but I'm gonna actually tie it all together, right? So right now we're super big, right? I just said a lot of things. A lot of it probably didn't make a lot.
Shiva, unmute yourself, Shiva. Sorry.
Oh, I thought I unmuted myself. Okay, can you guys hear me
Yeah,
now? Okay, good. Did you not hear anything I said, or?
we heard just now.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm gonna go into it. The essential part of how you can use this knowledge is that you're supposed to look internally and look that emotion and energy is actually the source of your consciousness, right? So I like to say that emotion is nothing but energy in motion. Emotion is the language that you need to be speaking in to actually communicate with this quantum world, right? The emotions, the feelings, the passions, that is where you need to follow. That is where you'll find the truth of the universe, right? Emotion is energy in motion. And when you have good intent mixed with good emotion, you can collapse the wave function, right? The wave function plus the observer. You can have good intent, good emotion. What that leads to is the wave function colliding with the observer to create reality. That essentially is what scientists are saying is the closest model of consciousness that we have right now. Consciousness dives pretty much into that intent, emotion, wave, observer, reality, right? So now how can you put this into practice? Suppose you want to write a book, right? I want to write a book. You can start with intention, right? So I'm going to give you person A and person B. one person who is living in the non-quantum realm and one person who's living in the quantum realm, right? So the person who's living in the non-quantum realm, the person who is still struck by the illusions, and the person who still doesn't really understand how the world works, will come at intent the wrong way. They will write a book for fame. They will write a book for money, and they'll write a book to maybe pay their bills, right? And then that leads to a certain emotion. When they are writing the book, right, the emotions that appear, right, the energy in motion that appears is going to be a negative energy of a lower vibration, right? What happens then is this writing, because of the intention, right, becomes less creative and less soulful because there's genuinely less energy going into it, right? Now, what that leads to is the collapse of the wave function. Now, out of all the possible hundreds of thousands of realities, you've collapsed into one reality now because your energy set into motion a certain wave, and now that wave has created a reality. Now, the reality that this creates, because you went for the wrong intention and then you went with the wrong emotion, is the wrong reality. Your book will probably fail. And I say probably because anything is possible. I know some people who are extremely sad and do not know what they're doing, but they're still successful. That's the story for another day. But 99% of the time, this is how it works for most people. From most of the entrepreneurs that I've seen, most of the people that I work with, it always starts with intent and emotion. It always starts with understanding that the universe has an abundance, and it always starts with knowing why you are doing something, right? Knowing what you're observing, where you're putting your intent, and what kind of reality you want to create, right? Person B, what is their intent for writing a book? They want to spread knowledge, right? They want to maybe meet other people, other writers, and create a great community, right? Maybe they want to um, pursue their dream. Maybe this is something they wanted to do as a child, right? Childhood dream. All these things is their intent, it is their emotion, right? Now that energy in motion sets aside a different structure, right? Now when they're writing the book, they're not thinking about the fame, they're not thinking about the money, they're not thinking about the bills. All they're thinking about is how can I spread this knowledge? How can I meet other writers? And how can I follow my childhood dreams, right? And when that is all they're thinking about, that book will look 10 times better because you can feel the soul in other people's work when they put their soul in it, right? And it's so easy because you understand that the best directors, the best writers, the best artists, they do their best work when they're emotionally driven, when they're telling real stories about real things that happen to them, or maybe interpretations of it, right? That's real. There's intent there. They want to tell a real story, right? So that should be your signal light. That's how you get into the quantum realm, right? You need to start with emotion. Make sure that when you are starting a task, that when you are manifesting a reality, that your emotion is in check, right? You need to make sure you're in a place of peace, a place of abundance, and a place of, let's see what else, emotion, peace, abundance, and clarity. That's super important. You need to know exactly what you want. You need to know that the universe has more than enough to give it to you. And you need to know that you're good if you have it or if you don't have it. That's the three pillars. If you're good with or without it, that's peace. If you know that the universe has enough to give it to you and you know you deserve it, that's abundance. And if you know exactly what you want, that's clarity, right? Those three things combine it into emotion. Now, when you set that emotion, otherwise known as energy in motion, into place, all of your actions, right? Even the ones you're not thinking about, even the way that you wake up in the morning, even the way you make your bed, even the way you talk to other people, all actions, both conscious and unconscious, will change. It 100% will change, right? It's just knowing where to start, knowing that you don't start here, right? Knowing that you don't start here. You just must start at the intent and the emotion. And if your intent is not there and your emotion's not there, don't even do it. It's not worth your time. It genuinely is not worth your time, right? If you have clarity, intent, and emotion, more than likely you will succeed 99% of the time, right? And people get so caught up, right? And it's easy to say, oh yeah, I mean, if I do everything with good emotion, I'll be so good, right? But it's learning and knowing that sometimes your emotions aren't great. Sometimes you're mad. Those times you need to have awareness and to know that that's not a time of action. That is a time of inaction, right? You need to know when to act and when to not act, right? And it's not like we decide when we feel good, when we feel bad, right? Sometimes we'll feel bad, sometimes we'll feel good, but it's important to know that inaction happens when we don't feel bad. When we feel bad, chill out, look inwards and take a break, right? But when you feel good, that's when you should act, right? You should do nothing but act. But nowadays, what people do is when they feel good, they go straight to things like TikTok, they go straight to things like Instagram, and they want to feel more of that good, right? They want to last longer by using these physical material goods, but that will never happen, right? And they flip it. When they feel bad, they feel, oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I have so many bills to pay. I need to do this work. It's 12 o'clock. It's late. I have a test exam tomorrow. I'm going to get to work. And they do action then. That's when the action fails because they didn't start with intent and they didn't start with emotion, right? It's so obvious when I say it to you out loud that, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're studying the night before a test, you're probably not going to do well because you're coming from a bad emotion, right? And there's so many reasons that go into that, but it's really is that simple. Just act when you have good emotion, set the good energy and motion in place, and make sure you check these 3 boxes, and you'll pretty much be able to manifest anything you want. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. That's the super scientific explanation of what waves are, right? And the ability of humans to turn waves into particles, right? The fact that waves are infinite universes and particle is the one universe you are living in. And the fact that humans actually have a choice and an effect on that. And because we have a choice and effect on that, we can use our intent and our emotion to get literally anything else we want. That's essentially the cheat code, right? And that's what we have to practice. And that's what meditation helps with. Meditation helps with that because it allows you to be more aware of when you are in a good emotion, of when you're in a bad emotion, right? If you meditate every day, you are so much more in tune with your thoughts. You know, I'm not feeling it today. I'm a little sick. I'm a little angry. I'm a little gloomy. I'm going to chill out. I'm going to look inwards. I'm going to do something I enjoy. I'm not going to take action, right? And meditation will tell you when you are in times of peace, when you're in times of abundance and clarity. And meditation will allow you to keep pushing forward and manifest those realities, right? That's what I have for you guys today. I do have another session Wednesday, and we're going to go dive deeper into this. We're going to be talking over the 7 Hermetic principles. And these are really cool principles. These are principles that were talked about 3,000 years ago, right? In tablets that were written in emeralds. And they're super vague, but I'll explain them next week. And this thing kind of ties everything together and makes the loop make complete sense. It allows you to manifest any reality, create any business you want, make as much money as you want, have as many followers on Instagram, do whatever you want, right? That's the secret. That's the code. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shiva. You explained it so well. Actually, I heard several times from different people, but the board and then the way you are writing, it is easy to understand even a little bit deeper. And you combined scripts and then modern science together, which helped us to understand more better. And I will open the stage for any questions. Friends, feel free to ask any questions, and if you have any doubts or anything, please unmute yourself and share it. Let me.
Yeah, I know I didn't do the best job of explaining a lot of things, but if you guys have any doubts, if there's something you just can't believe that I said, ask me, or anything, I'm open.
Yeah, now you can unmute yourself, my dear friends. Yes, Devi?
Yeah. Hi, Shiva. Thanks for the scientific explanation. It reminded me some of my early childhood tuitions and classes and school. But yeah, basically what I took away from your explanation is that when we observe certain things, the reality changes. Is that the simple way to understand things? Like the actual reality is something, but when you start observing, things can change. The reality can change, right?
It's
That's the simple way to.
well, it's not about changing. Reality starts to exist, right? So it's
Okay.
almost like when you're not looking, all the possibilities are possible. Everything is real. The moment you observe, it comes into reality. It collapses into one choice, right? It's almost like, have you heard the phrase, if a tree falls in the woods, do you really hear it? Did it really fall, right? It's almost that if no human was there to observe something, did it really ever happen? If there's nothing in the universe to observe, if there's no consciousness, is there anything happening, right? So that's basically the principle. It's not that you are in one universe and it's gonna change. It's that you are constantly living in every universe, and every second it's collapsing, right? Your observation's collapsing into a different pathway, right? So your intention and your observation, if you know where you're kind of pointing it and your clarity is there, you'll keep jumping to those realities, right? Like there's a reality where you're a massive movie star, right? But that reality, right, you have to start with energy and emotion, right? You have to be super passionate, you have to understand and love cinema, and you start acting today. You'd go to classes, you'd go there, and then who knows, in the next 5 years you get a big gig, and then 10 years you're a movie star. You know, that's possible. That's a real reality. You dropped everything and then you went to movie school every single day. That's a real reality, right? So you can do that with n number of things. Every reality does exist.
So does it mean that it depends on the way we observe the change in the reality?
Yep.
When we observe, what time observe, how much time we are observing,
exactly,
how
all of it
intently we are observing. So the reality kind of collapses. There are infinite possibilities, but but the possibilities kind of collapse into one based on the way you're observing and the time you're observing and all that.
Right. If you keep paying attention to the bad things, it'll collapse towards a worse universe. You know, if you keep paying attention to good things, if you keep doing good things, if you have good intention and good emotions, you'll keep going towards that. That's why, like, people say, like, you are your thoughts, or pay attention to the right thing. I'm just explaining it in a very, very scientific way, like how it actually works. You know, when people say your thoughts can manifest your reality, it's not just a joke. You know, people are saying that because your consciousness has genuine play in reality. It actually changes things. You know, it's not just that you and the universe are separate. Like it's one. Like you have a harmony with the universe, and your intention and consciousness changes it. Yeah. And like you said, you know, how much you focus, how long you focus, what you focus on, and what kind of emotional state you're in when you focus on that stuff is very important.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of one more scientific experiment, which is Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? So if someone who has not studied about this, so basically every particle is made of electrons and protons and neutrons, right? Every particle in this world. And the principle says that electron is a particle and it could also be a wave. So one of the scientists tried to measure the velocity of the electron. So we all know that there is a nucleus in the middle and electrons are revolving around it. But Heisenberg was someone who tried to find the velocity of the electron, but it always changed the time when so the classic mechanics says that there is definite velocity. There is one particular velocity of an electron, but quantum mechanics says that there's no particular velocity. It depends on when you are observing and when you are finding where you are finding that electron. So that is why I think when you observe certain things, definitely the reality.
And if it's happening at that small level, hundreds of millions of thousands of times every millisecond around you, just imagine the effect you can have on a much larger scale. You know, if your observation can change something that small and it's happening everywhere. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle is also very similar. It's very cool.
Hi, Shiva.
Thank you, Diva. Thank you, Diva.
Sheetal, can you hear me? I have a question.
Yes, Geeta.
This is Geeta. Thank you for explaining it so well. I am a little bit out of touch with physics, but I think I learned a lot about it.
I'm sorry, I tried my best.
So I think in kind of relating that to the human consciousness, and I know universe is all about energy. When we are all exchanging energy, you know, do you say that it's constantly changing, like you know, the non-duality, right? So it's like light versus dark, good versus bad. So that's like one extreme to another extreme. So what you explained, the quantum is a continuous process. It's like basically the perception changes depending upon where you are in that spectrum. So that means you attract what you see, or you become what you think. So basically, we are all in the spectrum, and most of the time we are like in duality, right? We divide things into good and bad and all that. I think we have to be understanding this is the exchange of energy where you are, and that kind of decides like how you perceive things. Do you say that applies to this principle?
100%. I think the point you bring up about non-duality is very important. I think we live in a world where that's the greatest illusion, right? The greatest illusion is that there is a separation, right, between, like what you said, hot and cold, good and bad, light and dark, us and the universe, right? But in reality, there is no separation. It's all just one field, right? And we're all living in it. And like you said, it's constantly changing. It's morphing, right? And you do have impact on that. And your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, your vibrations, you have an effect on that. And like you mentioned before, even other people around you, right? Like when people say you can transfer energy or you can kind of build energy together, there is a sort of truth to that, right? Because explaining it a little scientifically, they've done research on human brain waves when people are meditating, and there's elevated levels of brain waves when you're meditating, right? So that can show that we are actually, consciousness is being played in that quantum field. And really it's all just a spectrum, and you're just collapsing constantly. And it's up to you where you put your attention and focus, because that's essentially what you'll become.
Yeah, that's very true. I think also if you're a person interacting with a different person every day, they're going through different things, you are going through different things. So it's like that exchange that's happening. Sometimes you think like, oh, it's what did I do wrong, right? But we don't relate to maybe that person is going through something, their energy is different today. So they're resonating from where they are, the frequency they are vibrating at. So you can see a stranger in your workplace, one day they're different than other day, but you haven't changed, you haven't interacted with them anything, but they're going through a different set of they're a different wavelength. So I think again it brings important point about the waves and the wavelengths and frequency, and like this is very fascinating. It's technology.
And you choose to believe that you are the reason that your coworker is that way, or you can choose to believe that you are not, right? And both of those collapse different realities, right? One reality, you're looking over your shoulder, you're more sad. Maybe you even say something to your coworker that makes them more sad, right? And the other reality, you're good, like you're untouchable, your energy, other people can't change your energy, so yeah, it really does, like what you think about.
So sometimes I'm saying that you don't have to say anything, you just
walk by. You can just walk away.
You work in the you work with a lot of people. Some of them you're not interacting, but you just pass by somebody, so they're in a good mood, right? So they greet you well and talk to you a lot, and other day you're just passing by, nothing happened in between, but you still see there's a difference in interaction. So that means there is, if you are in a high state of energy, people want to come and talk to you. You attract positivity, right? So it all this is all cool. I'm looking forward to your further explanations next session.
It's all interlinked. It's all just one big solution. But the hardest thing is practicing it. It's all theory. It's all good to say it, but we're all human. We all go through emotions and real things, right? And we all get caught up. But that's when the awareness becomes important. Be aware that this is the reality, that this is how things are. So yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Geeta. Anybody else, friends, if you have any questions?
This is Josna. I just want to make one point. I know I'm not really a science person, but it's very nice how you connect the emotions, like energy and emotion, scientifically you're explaining. But I just want to keep it very simple when you said that in order to do any task successfully, you have to be in a place of peace, abundance, and clarity, which is kind of the emotion. We hear that most of the time. I did not really somehow connect that to emotion.
I can
it's a very different way of looking at it, and it's very interesting in that sense. it definitely helps. Scientific explanation definitely helps. To me, simply when you said peace, abundance, and clarity, yes, they make sense. And sometimes people define emotions in different ways, and so that becomes confused. Like, for example, sometimes people say, okay, don't get emotional, you cannot do the work. And the thing is that, what is emotion? So you kind of said that, and that I kind of really like that part. The other one, when you say to act, not to act, like when you feel good. And so that's what we always struggle with. I also do. When you feel good, you have good emotion, so you can perform the task much better.
Yeah.
And so that's just good to be reminded.
Yeah, exactly.
Although you can, I cannot probably just connect that to scientifically very much, but
Yeah.
I think that's very, very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Because a lot of times, we act like I can just personalize it. Sometimes I don't feel good, but I want to do this, do that, do this. And I really felt to do it really nicely. And so feeling good, that's very, very important, actually. I'm going through a period right now, kind of sad, actually. I lost my spouse, and just not long ago. And so I see that, I don't have really much clarity, and I'm trying to do stuff, and it's too soon for me to do things.
Absolutely,
but I have been used to do stuff, so I'm just trying to see A, B, C, D, but I find myself not very clear in what I'm doing. So and I have already made a couple of mistakes in my judgment. And so that I'm so glad you just brought it up this evening. And I like that the third point is that how you connected that to meditation. So no wonder meditation is very, very important, to expand on our consciousness. And, that ultimately helps us with the emotion, and, whether feeling good or feeling bad and all that. So just that comment. And, it's really, really fascinating. Thank you for so much for
thank
giving.
you. Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. I think it's yeah, I mean, it's far too easy to kind of just act first and then try to change your reality by changing reality, by making your life better by cleaning your room, or by fixing all these things by doing something. But you really have to start with emotion first, I think, always. What emotional state are you in? Focus on that, pay attention to your inner self, and that will 99% of the time give you your answer, what you should actually do. And yeah, that's I think that's one of the big takeaways. I think is it's super important to be self-aware of what position we're in, and to make sure that that is how we act.
That's very true. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joshnaji. Anybody else, friends? We can take one or two questions, and then we can go to meditation. Questions or comments, or you can also say, I did not understand.
Anything? I promise I won't try to explain again.
Actually, I just wanted to second what the previous speaker, Jyotsna had just said, that this is a very, very fascinating subject. And thanks a lot to you, Shiva, sir, to kind of help us. I mean, not us, me personally. Quantum was just a word thrown out there, which I thought
all
was
the time. Yeah, left and right.
just way over my head, and it still is way over my head. But then you helped to kind of like break it into one tiny little digestible piece that I think, oh, okay, so maybe I can like make a little bit, you can dig deeper into it, but absolutely it seems to be like a really fascinating subject. And
it's huge. Even I don't know more than 5%. I'm just cracking the top of the egg too. It's like it's the edge of science right now, right? It's what like metaphysics was 10 years ago. It's what astrophysics was 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty cool. I think the findings that we'll also come across in the next 5-10 years, with the rate that scientists are coming across, might show us a lot of things. Funny thing is, most of the findings that we see nowadays are just things that ancient people have said the whole time. We find out, consciousness affects reality. And then some ancient monk like 2,000 years ago said that. And then we're like, dang,
I
should have
know,
just paid
right?
attention to him in the first place.
Yeah. And I'm really super impressed that you actually, at this young age, that you've been you've been exposed to all this knowledge, and yeah, good luck to you, and thank you for opening
Of course.
a little bit towards the subject. I'm not going to take more time. I know your meditation is coming up, but yeah, I just wanted to
Thank you.
say a couple words. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta ji. We can take one more and then we can go into meditation. If anybody wants to share anything, please unmute yourself.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I'm too embarrassed to say that physics was my major. And then I did computers though, so I've totally forgotten everything. We have brushed quantum physics, I remember, but it was really great and good to have the emotional connection.
Yeah.
And I loved the creativity part, and I loved where you take a moment, I mean, at least the summary, take a moment before you take an action. So
exactly.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you for your comment. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Vipasha ji. Any questions, friends? Otherwise, we'll do 20 minutes meditation and Shiva will be here. And if you have any questions after that, please feel free to ask or put it in the chat box. That will be great. And again, as he explained, right, he's going to come back on Wednesday. And tomorrow also, we will look into some examples of what Shiva said, but not in a quantum way, but in our scripture ways, yad bhavam tad bhavati, what you sow, so you reap. All those things, right? With examples we are going to share and discuss tomorrow. But yeah, let's all go into meditation, my dear friends. So the meditation, what we are practicing is very simple. All we are doing is observing